The autumn wind didn't so much sweep across the Kansas prairie as it clawed, tearing at the loose window panes of River Point Schoolhouse. I tightened my grip on Mercury's reins, dust swirling in my eyes. My first day teaching in this tiny town of 437 souls, and I was already going to be late. Securing this job had been a nightmare. Too many questions, too many whispers about the incident in Philadelphia. Just then, the wind kicked up a wall of dirt so thick it blotted out the sun. Mercury panicked. He reared, screaming, and I tumbled backward. My head struck something hard, unforgiving. Then only darkness. Consciousness returned in jagged pieces. Voices I didn't know, distant and muffled. The sharp, clean scents of camphor and witch hazel. A pulsing, deep pain behind my right eye. I forced my eyelids open, wincing at the blade of light from a nearby window. I was on a narrow cot, an infirmary. A damp cloth was draped across my forehead. "She's awake," a woman's voice announced. An older woman, iron gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, leaned over me. "I'm Mrs. Turner, the school nurse. You've had a nasty fall, Miss Morgan." "My horse," I started, struggling to sit up. "Mercury's fine," a deeper voice said from the doorway. "Brought him to the livery stable myself." I turned my head, the room spinning slightly. A young man leaned against the doorframe. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with sun-browned skin and the most serious hazel eyes I'd ever seen. His denim trousers were worn, his blue shirt faded, the sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms dusted with the land. "This is Ethan Hayes," Mrs. Turner explained. "He found you on the road." Ethan just nodded once, his expression impossible to read. "Shouldn't ride that stretch alone during dust season. Wind comes up too quick." My hand flew to my cheek, a nervous habit tracing the small, pale scar that marked my left cheekbone. "Thank you for your assistance, Mr. Hayes." A hint of something, amusement, maybe a challenge, flickered in his eyes. "You'll be my student, Miss Morgan. I'm 20, but I'm still working on finishing school when ranch work allows." Before I could process that, my gaze fell on my traveling case. It sat open on a chair nearby. My things were displaced, the contents clearly disturbed. A cold spike of panic shot through me. I remembered what was hidden in the lining. The letter, the one that could destroy everything. "My belongings," I said sharply, trying to stand. Mrs. Turner gently pressed me back down. "I had to check for identification. You were unconscious." But this was more than a simple search. My journal had been moved. A small lock of my hair, tucked inside its pages, was gone. The secret compartment in the case seemed untouched, but I knew someone had been thorough. "I'd appreciate some privacy now," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "And I'd prefer we kept this incident between us. No need to alarm the school board on my first day." Mrs. Turner hesitated, then nodded. "Very well, but rest another hour before you try to teach." After she left, I looked at Ethan. He hadn't moved. His eyes took in everything, the way my hands trembled, how my gaze kept darting back to the case. "Someone went through your things more thoroughly than Mrs. Turner would have," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. I stiffened. "I don't know what you mean." "This is a small town, Miss Morgan. Strangers are noticed, especially beautiful women with mysterious scars who arrive alone." His gaze was direct, unflinching. "Whatever you're running from, it might have followed you here." He straightened up, turning to leave. "Class starts in an hour. I'll be there." He paused at the door. "Welcome to River Point, Miss Morgan." The schoolhouse filled with the children of River Point, from gap-toothed 6-year-olds to Ethan Hayes, sitting silent and watchful in the back row. I forced myself to focus on the lesson, the pain in my head a dull throb against the sharp edge of my worry. Who had searched my things? And what were they looking for? "Older students, open your literature primers to page 43, I instructed. As I moved through the classroom, I felt Ethan's eyes on me. He wasn't working. He was just watching. When I reached his desk, he held out his primer. It was open to a dog-eared page, a story by Hawthorne. "I've read this story before," he said, his voice low. "Many times. Do you enjoy literature, Mr. Hayes?" "Words make sense when the world doesn't," he replied so quietly only I could hear. "Don't they, Miss Morgan? Before I could answer, the schoolhouse door swung open. A man filled the frame, tall and imposing, a full beard threaded with silver. His eyes were the same hazel as Ethan's, but colder, harder. The children snapped to attention. "Mr. Hayes," I said, assuming it was his father. "We're in the middle of lessons." "I need my son," he replied, his voice a low growl. "Ranch work doesn't wait for Hawthorne or arithmetic." Ethan closed his book slowly. "Cattle drives not until next week, Father." Plans changed. Howard Hayes's gaze swept dismissively over the room before it landed on me. His eyes narrowed as they lingered on my scar. "You must be the new teacher from back east." "Philadelphia," I confirmed, lifting my chin. "Long way to come for a teaching post in River Point." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. "I found the position suited my needs," I replied evenly, "as I'm sure your son finds his education suits his." Howard's expression hardened. "Ethan's needed at the ranch. He won't be back for a week." Ethan gathered his books, his movements slow and deliberate. As he passed my desk, he slid a folded piece of paper beneath my lesson book. The movement was so quick, so subtle, I almost missed it. After they left, a heavy silence filled the room. I waited until the students were absorbed in their work before I unfolded the note. The handwriting was neat, precise, educated. Nothing like what I'd expect from a rancher's son who rarely attended school. "Check your mail at Jenkins General Store. Look for the name Nathaniel Bishop." Jenkins General Store smelled of coffee beans, leather, and pickle brine. Samuel Jenkins, a thin man with spectacles perched on his nose, looked up as I entered. "Miss Morgan, a pleasure to finally meet our new teacher." His smile was warm, but his eyes were curious. "I was told there might be mail for me." "Indeed there is." He returned with a small package wrapped in brown paper. "Came yesterday, addressed to Eleanor Morgan, care of River Point School." I turned the package over. The handwriting was elegant, the paper expensive. No return address. "From an admirer, perhaps?" Jenkins suggested with a wink. "Just supplies I ordered," I lied smoothly. "Thank you." "There's also this," he said, handing me an envelope. "From a Nathaniel Bishop. He said you'd be expecting it." My heart hammered against my ribs. I had never heard the name before Ethan's note. Who was this man? "Can't rightly say," Jenkins said, leaning forward conspiratorially. "Letter came from Topeka last week. Not to gossip, but you're causing quite a stir, Miss Morgan. A beautiful new teacher with mysterious correspondence. People talk." "People always do," I replied, tucking the items into my satchel. Outside, the afternoon was still and golden. I walked quickly to my small rented room, my mind racing. Who was Nathaniel Bishop? What was his connection to Ethan Hayes? And who had searched my belongings? Once inside, I bolted the door and drew the curtains. My hands trembled as I opened the letter. "Dear Miss Morgan, I hope this finds you settled. As an old friend of your father's, I was distressed to learn of your troubles in Philadelphia. I assure you, there are those who believe in your innocence, despite what the newspapers claimed. I regret that business prevents me from meeting you in person, but please accept the enclosed as a token of support. Kansas winters are harsh. With sincere regard, Nathaniel Bishop." I unwrapped the package, a pair of fine leather gloves lined with rabbit fur. How did this stranger know about Philadelphia? How did he know what gloves I owned? And most disturbing of all, how did he know my father, who had died when I was a child? I sank onto the bed, the letter clutched in my hand. The carefully constructed life of Eleanor Morgan, respectable schoolteacher, was beginning to crumble. Behind my closed eyes, the memories flickered. The glint of a knife in the gaslight. A man's shocked face, blood blooming across his shirt. The burning sting as the blade slashed my cheek. My own screams. And later, the headlines. "Fiancé of wealthy heiress murdered. Authorities question survivor." I had fled Philadelphia not because I was guilty, but because no one believed I was innocent. The woman who had somehow survived when her strong, wealthy fiancé had not. I carefully refolded the letter and slipped it beneath a loose floorboard alongside the other one. The one I'd hidden in my traveling case. The one that proved my fiancé, William, had never loved me. The letter I found in his things after his death. written in his own hand. My dearest Jay, the Morgan girl suspects nothing. Her father's investments have performed exactly as you predicted. Once we are married, transferring the funds should be simple. Her naivete is almost pitiable. Until our next meeting, William. The letter that named an accomplice. Someone identified only as Jay. Someone who might still be looking for me, determined to silence the only witness to their crime. The next day I faced my classroom with a new resolve. If my past was going to follow me here, I needed to understand this town. Today, I announced, we're going to discuss community. What makes River Point special? The children exchanged puzzled glances. Slowly, hands began to rise. My pa says we have the best cattle in Kansas, offered one boy. The church bell came all the way from Boston, added the Reverend's daughter. Then young Tommy Wilson blurted out, the Hayes Ranch used to be twice as big before Mrs. Hayes died. The classroom fell silent. Children darted nervous glances at Ethan, who sat motionless, his face carved from stone. The tension was a living thing in the room. I had stumbled onto something raw, a wound that hadn't healed. After class, Ethan lingered at his desk. I apologize for Tommy's comment, I said quietly. They repeat what they hear at home, he said, his voice flat. And what they hear is that my mother killed herself, my sister ran away in shame, and my father is a bitter man who drove them both to it. The blunt words hung in the air. Is that what you believe? I asked gently. His gaze was distant. I believe the truth is rarely as simple as people want it to be. That Sunday, I attended services at the white-clapboard church. As soon as I entered, heads turned and whispers began. A beautiful young teacher with an unexplained scar in mysterious male was irresistible gossip. Reverend Miller welcomed me warmly, gesturing me to a front pew. From there, I could see the whole congregation. The Wilsons, the Jenkinses, Mrs. Turner watching me with undisguised curiosity. And to my surprise, Howard Hayes, sitting alone, his expression thunderous. Ethan was nowhere to be seen. After the service, a potluck was announced. I found myself surrounded. You must tell us all about Philadelphia, gushed Mrs. Jenkins. What brought you all the way out here? Asked Mrs. Wilson. Before I could answer, Mrs. Turner cut in. Now, ladies, let's not overwhelm Miss Morgan. I'm sure she'll share her fascinating story with us in due time. The emphasis on fascinating sent a chill down my spine. She suspected something. Then Howard Hayes was standing in front of me. I know who you are, he interrupted before I could speak. You're the woman encouraging my son to waste his time with books when he should be learning to manage the ranch. Education is never a waste, Mr. Hayes, I replied evenly. It is when it fills a boy's head with nonsense. Poetry, philosophy. He spat the words like poison. What Ethan needs, he said, his voice dangerously low, is to remember his responsibilities. And what you need, Miss Morgan, is to remember your place. You're here to teach arithmetic and spelling, not to meddle in matters that don't concern you. He stalked away, leaving a wake of whispers. Mrs. Turner appeared at my elbow. You've made quite an impression on Howard Hayes, she observed dryly. Or were you defending Ethan? Her gaze was shrewd, cutting. The number of people to be wary of was growing by the day. The days fell into a rhythm. Every few weeks, another letter or gift would arrive from Nathaniel Bishop. A rare book of poetry, a silk scarf, a silver brooch. The mystery of my benefactor became a town obsession. Mrs. Turner's suspicion grew with each delivery. It's not proper, I overheard her telling Reverend Miller. Sensible women don't have mysterious correspondence, and they don't arrive in town with scars and secrets. The walls of my new life were beginning to crack. Ethan returned to school after the cattle drive, quieter than before. He completed his assignments with a surprising depth, revealing an intelligence that was startling. My mother enjoyed literature, he said when I commented on an essay. She taught me that words can hold truths. People are afraid to speak aloud. His fingers traced the edge of the paper. She's been gone 5 years now. May I ask what happened? I asked softly. Officially, she fell from her horse, he said, his voice devoid of emotion. But in River Point, stories have a way of growing in the telling. The implication was clear. Suicide, not an accident. And your sister? Left for Denver the week after the funeral. Hasn't been back since. Father doesn't speak her name anymore. He began staying after school, helping with small tasks. We talked about poetry, about philosophy, about the vast, lonely beauty of the prairie. One afternoon, while organizing the bookshelf, I found it. A slim, leather-bound journal tucked behind the primers, filled with handwritten verse. The poems were raw, passionate, and achingly sad. There was no name, but I knew. I knew who had written them. The next day, after the other students had left, I placed the journal on his desk. I found this. The poetry is remarkable. His face drained of color. He reached for it, then stopped. You weren't meant to see that. Why not? You have a gift, Ethan. My father would call it a waste, he said bitterly. Men in Kansas don't write poetry, Miss Morgan. They raise cattle and work the land. He tucked the journal into his coat. The rest of the town wouldn't be surprised. They already think I'm strange. The Hayes boy who prefers books to broncos. His gaze met mine, defiant and vulnerable. But you understand, don't you? What it's like to be judged for something beyond your control. His words struck at the heart of my own fears. Yes, I admitted softly. I understand. One December afternoon, snow fell silently outside. We sat by the glowing stove, reading Dickinson aloud. The barriers between teacher and student seemed to melt away in the warm lamplight. Hope is the thing with feathers, I read softly. After a long moment, he asked, Do you still have hope, Miss Morgan? The question startled me. I try to. Some days it's harder than others. Because of what happened in Philadelphia? I tensed. What do you know about Philadelphia? Only what was in the newspapers. That you were attacked. That your fiancé died. That some people thought that I was somehow involved. I finished for him, my voice tight. Yes. I don't, he said simply. My throat constricted. You don't know me. I know that frightened people run. Guilty people hide. His eyes met mine. You're teaching children in plain sight, using your real name. That's not the action of someone with blood on their hands. How long had it been since anyone had simply believed me? Thank you, I whispered. The church bells broke the spell. Ethan rose to leave. As he buttoned his coat, a small folded paper fell from his literature primer. I bent to retrieve it, unfolding it before I realized what I was doing. The handwriting was familiar. Less polished, but unmistakable. A rough draft of a letter. I hope the recent edition of Wordsworth brought some comfort. The poem about daffodils always reminds me of... The letter broke off. My gaze snapped up to meet his. He stood frozen, an expression of dread and defiance on his face. You, I breathed, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. You're Nathaniel Bishop. He snatched the paper from my hand, his face flushing. You had no right to read that. And you had no right to pretend, to invent some mysterious benefactor who knew my father, who... I broke off, the implications dawning on me. How much do you know about me? How long have you been watching me? It's not what you think. Then what is it? Explain yourself. But he was already backing toward the door. I can't. Not now. He paused on the threshold. I never meant to deceive you, Miss Morgan. I only wanted to help. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with a storm of questions and a terrible sinking feeling in my gut. 2 days before Christmas, another letter arrived. This one contained no gift, only a warning. My dear Miss Morgan, a man has been making inquiries about you in Kansas City. A private detective, I believe, recently arrived from Philadelphia. He claims to be investigating loose ends in your fiancé's murder. Please exercise caution. There are those who would gladly see you blamed. I have friends watching him and will alert you if he approaches River Point. You have an ally in Nathaniel Bishop. My hands shook so badly I could barely refold the letter. A detective. From Philadelphia. Jay had sent someone. To pin the murder on me. Or to silence me for good. I had to leave. Now. I started pulling clothes from my dresser, my mind racing. Then a knock at the door. Miss Morgan? Ethan's voice. I shoved the clothes back in the drawer and opened the door. Mr. Hayes, this is inappropriate. I saw your face at the post office, he interrupted. You look terrified. Are you in danger? That's none of my concern. It is if you're planning to run. His gaze moved past me to the open drawer. You are, aren't you? I stepped back, letting him in. Close the door, I said quietly. Someone is coming from Philadelphia, I said, my voice flat. A detective. Because of your fiancé's murder. I nodded. There are complications. Tell me, he said simply. And for some reason I did. I told him everything. About William's betrayal. About the scheme. I even retrieved the letter from under the floorboard and showed it to him. He read it slowly, his expression darkening. This J person, you think they're behind the detective? I don't know, but now they found me. He was quiet for a long moment. You need to stay, he said finally. Running makes you look guilty. Staying, facing this, that's how you clear your name. His voice was firm. Besides, where would you go? How long can you keep running? The question hung in the air. I'll help you, he continued. I have friends in Kansas City who can find out more about this detective. Why would you risk helping me? Maybe I understand what it's like to be judged for something that wasn't your fault, he said quietly. To have people look at you and see only what they want to believe. I saw him then, not as the quiet rancher's son, but as a young man carrying his own burden of unjust suspicion. Thank you, I said, but I can't involve you. You already have, he replied, a ghost of a smile on his face, the moment you accepted that first letter from Nathaniel Bishop. He moved to the door. Don't leave, he said, his hand on the knob. Not yet, promise me. I'll stay through Christmas, I conceded. Fair enough. He paused on the threshold. Miss Morgan, Eleanor, for what it's worth, I believed in your innocence before I even met you. Then he was gone, leaving me with another cryptic puzzle as the first flakes of Christmas snow began to fall, blanketing River Point in a silence as deep and impenetrable as the secrets that now surrounded me. Christmas Day brought an unexpected knock. It was Mrs. Turner. No one should be alone on Christmas, she announced. The Millers are expecting us for dinner. There was no gracious way to refuse. The Millers' home was warm and filled with laughter, and to my surprise, a tall, striking young woman stood slightly apart from the others. This is Margaret Hayes, Reverend Miller said, Ethan's sister visiting from Denver. She had his same hazel eyes, the same reserved air. Miss Hayes, I said, I've heard about you from your brother. Have you? Her voice was cool. How interesting. My brother rarely speaks of me. The dinner conversation flowed around the dangerous shores of the Hayes family drama, but I was acutely aware of Margaret's gaze on me. After dinner, she approached me by the window. My brother has mentioned you in his letters, she said. He seems to think quite highly of you. He's an exceptional student. He's 20 years old, Miss Morgan, a man, not a boy, and he's involved himself in your affairs more deeply than you realize. My pulse quickened. The letters, Nathaniel Bishop? Ah, so you figured it out. Recently. My brother has always believed in lost causes, she said, her smile sad. In rescuing people who don't always wish to be rescued. I'm not, aren't you? A woman running from a scandal, hiding in a frontier town. You've become quite the subject of speculation. Mrs. Turner has been writing to a friend in Philadelphia, you know, seeking information about you. The blood drained from my face. I'm not judging you, Margaret said softly. I only want you to understand. Ethan believes in you, but sometimes his good intentions cause more harm than good. Just then, the front door opened. Howard Hayes strode into the room, his face flushed, his expression thunderous. The caroling stopped. Margaret went rigid. Father, she said. You were expected at the ranch, he said, ignoring everyone else. I told you I was staying in town. His gaze fell on me. Miss Morgan, what a surprise. He turned back to Margaret. Get your things, we're leaving. I'm staying in town, Father. You'll do as I say, girl. Father, a new voice said. Ethan stood in the doorway, snow dusting his shoulders. It's Christmas. She can stay with me, I heard myself say. The words were out before I'd fully considered them. All eyes turned to me. Howard looked outraged. Ethan's expression was unreadable, but I saw a flicker of gratitude. She's coming home, Howard insisted. No, Margaret said, her voice quiet but firm. I'm not. The silence was electric. Then Ethan moved to stand beside his sister, a silent, unmovable shield. Howard looked from one defiant child to the other, his face a mask of fury and disbelief. Without another word, he turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Later that evening, the snow turned into a blizzard. Reverend Miller insisted everyone stay the night. I should return to my room, I said, desperate to escape. I'll walk you back, Ethan offered. The wind howled as we fought our way through the swirling snow. On the shelter of my porch, he finally spoke. Thank you, he said, for offering to take in my sister. It was nothing. It was kind, he said. Margaret doesn't have many allies here. His expression darkened. Because she left. Because she refused to accept the official story about our mother's death. I stilled, my key halfway to the lock. What do you mean? He stared out at the storm, his voice so low I had to lean in to hear. My mother loved to ride. The day she died, she was found at the base of Miller's Ridge, her neck broken. They said her horse spooked, but that mare was the gentlest horse on the ranch. And my mother was an excellent rider. She wouldn't have fallen. His voice was haunted. The night before, I heard her arguing with my father about letters. Letters she'd been writing that he'd found. The next morning, she was dead, and Margaret found a stack of ashes in the fireplace. He thinks your father killed her, I whispered. His silence was answer enough. He forbade her to speak of it, said she was disgracing the family. When she wouldn't stop, he told her she was no longer welcome. She was 17. Now I understood the chasm in this family. Why are you telling me this? Because you've trusted me with your secrets, he said. Because I want you to understand why I did what I did with the letters. I recognize something in your situation. Someone judged guilty without evidence. Someone running. Someone alone. So you invented a protector, I said, the hurt still there, by lying to me, by making me believe I had an ally, when really it was just me. Just the ranch boy who sits in the back of your classroom? He finished, a flash of anger in his eyes. He turned away. I'm sorry, I had no right. Ethan, I said softly, look at me. He turned back, his eyes shadowed. I'm not angry that it was you. I'm angry that you felt you needed to be someone else. Would you have accepted help from Ethan Hayes? He challenged. The question hit too close to home. I probably wouldn't have. I don't know, I admitted, but I would have preferred the chance to decide. He nodded slowly. You're right, I apologize. He glanced back toward the Miller's house. I should go. I didn't want him to leave. Stay, I said, just for a moment. He stepped back onto the porch. There's something else, he said after a long silence. The detective from Philadelphia. He's not just in Kansas City anymore. He arrived in River Point yesterday. The world tilted. He's staying at the hotel. Daniel Fletcher is his name. He's been asking questions about you. I saw him talking to Mrs. Turner. Of course. What if this isn't about solving your fiancé's murder at all? Ethan's voice was grim. What if it's about silencing the only witness? I finally unlocked my door. Thank you for warning me, I said, and for the truth. Be careful, Eleanor. Keep your doors locked. He paused at the top of the steps. Merry Christmas, Miss Morgan, he said softly, then vanished into the storm. I locked the door, leaning against it as my mind reeled. Ethan was Nathaniel Bishop. Howard Hayes might be a murderer, and a man named Daniel Fletcher was in this town, hunting me. I moved to the window, pulling the curtains tight. As I did, a shadow moved across the street, a tall figure making his way toward the hotel. Daniel Fletcher. The threat was no longer a distant whisper. It was here, and it was watching me. The days after Christmas were a blur of tension. I saw Fletcher occasionally, a tall, well-dressed man with watchful eyes. He never approached me directly, but I felt his presence like a physical weight. One day in the general store, Margaret cornered me. My brother says you have a letter, she said, her voice low. From your fiancé, to someone called Jay. May I see it? Reluctantly, I agreed. Back in my room, I retrieved it from its hiding place. She read it carefully, her brow furrowed. This handwriting, she said, her voice troubled. It reminds me of something. She looked up, her eyes wide with a dawning horror. My mother, she corresponded with a man before she died. I never knew his name. Father found the letters and burned them, but I saw the handwriting once. It was distinctive, like this. The implication was staggering. My mother was planning to leave my father, she whispered. What if it wasn't father she was running from, but someone else? Someone connected to your fiancé? My mother died under suspicious circumstances. Your fiancé was murdered. Both were connected to letters someone didn't want found. That can't be a coincidence. What are you saying? I'm saying be careful, Miss Morgan. Very careful. She moved toward the door. Fletcher, he approached me yesterday. He asked about you, but he also asked about my mother, about the circumstances of her death. Why would a detective from Philadelphia care about that unless... A sharp rap at the door made us both freeze. Miss Morgan? A man's voice. My name is Daniel Fletcher. I'd like to speak with you. Margaret's face went white. The window, I whispered. She slipped out the back as I opened the front. Fletcher was exactly as I'd imagined, his smile never reaching his cold, calculating eyes. I believe we have some matters to discuss regarding events in Philadelphia, he said, stepping inside without invitation. He swept the room with his gaze, then settled into my only chair. New evidence has come to light, Miss Morgan. Evidence that may shed fresh perspective on Mr. Blackwood's untimely death, and on your role in it. I had no role, I insisted, my heart hammering. I was a victim. A victim who survived with only a minor wound while her fiancé bled to death? His voice was hard. Come now, Miss Morgan. We both know William Blackwood was not the devoted fiancé he pretended to be. My blood ran cold. We both know about the scheme to access your inheritance. How could you possibly know that? He smiled, withdrawing a folded paper from his jacket. A letter, nearly identical to the one hidden beneath my floorboard. Where did you get this? I whispered. What matters is that I know the truth, he said, leaning forward. I know you discovered his plan, and you took matters into your own hands. Vengeance disguised as a robbery. That's not what happened. Then what did happen? Who killed William Blackwood, if not the woman who had every reason to want him dead? His voice was a silken threat. Why are you doing this? I demanded. If you think I'm guilty, why not arrest me? Something shifted in his eyes. Perhaps I'm not interested in justice for William Blackwood, he said quietly. Perhaps I'm more concerned with loose ends. Loose ends. The exact words from Ethan's warning letter. You're not a detective, I realized aloud. His smile was chilling. Smart girl. Who are you? The letter, Miss Morgan. The original. The one you took from William's study. That's all I want. Give it to me and I'll disappear. It names you, doesn't it? I gambled, watching his face. You're Jay, William's partner. A muscle twitched in his jaw. The letter. Now. I don't have it, I lied. I destroyed it. I don't believe you. He moved closer, backing me against the wall. His hand shot out, gripping my arm with painful force. Where is it? Let go of me. Where? The door burst open with a crash. Ethan stood on the threshold, his face a mask of cold fury. Margaret was right behind him. Take your hands off her, Ethan said, his voice deadly quiet. Fletcher released me, stepping back. Mr. Hayes, your timing is impeccable. Get out, Ethan ordered. Fletcher retrieved his hat. Think carefully, Miss Morgan. I'll return tomorrow for your answer, and for the item we discussed. Then he was gone. Are you all right? Ethan asked, his anger replaced by concern. Margaret came to find me. She told me he was here. He's not a detective, I said, sinking onto the bed, my legs suddenly weak. He's Jay. He wants the letter. He'll be back, I said with certainty. Then we need to be ready for him. Ethan's voice was grim. He turned to his sister. Margaret, go back to the Millers. Tell them nothing. After she left, I looked at Ethan. You can't stay here. Propriety be damned, he cut me off. A man who may be a murderer just threatened you. I'm staying. He turned to face me in the fading light, his expression vulnerable. Let me do this. Let me protect you. Not as Nathaniel Bishop, but as myself, as Ethan Hayes. I nodded slowly. He took the chair, then withdrew a revolver from his pocket, setting it on the table between us. I wasn't planning on sleeping, he said. Outside, the snow began to fall again, blanketing the town in white. Inside, we waited, unaware that Howard Hayes was at that very moment studying a familiar, elegant handwriting on an old letter he'd found among his late wife's things, a letter signed simply, J. Dawn broke, brilliant and cold. Ethan and I had kept a tense vigil all night. "He'll be back," Ethan said grimly. "He wants that letter too badly." I retrieved the letter from under the floorboard. "We need to understand the connection," I said, "between William, Fletcher, and your mother." "We need to talk to my father," Ethan said, his voice strained. "For years I believed he was responsible for Mother's death. But what if we were wrong? What if the person she was writing to was connected to all this?" A sharp knock at the door made us both freeze. "Miss Morgan?" Mrs. Turner's voice. "I need to speak with you, urgently." I opened the door. Her sharp eyes took in my disheveled appearance, and Ethan standing behind me. "There's been an incident at the Hayes Ranch," she said without preamble. "Howard Hayes was found unconscious in his study. Attacked. Someone struck him from behind. The room was ransacked. They were looking for something." Ethan pushed past her. "My father? Is he alive?" "He's alive," and she confirmed. "Unconscious, but alive." "I need to go to him," Ethan said, already striding down the porch steps. "Eleanor, the schoolhouse. 1 hour, bring the letter." He was gone. Mrs. Turner turned back to me, her expression a mixture of scandal and curiosity. "What letter? What is going on, Miss Morgan?" At Dr. Palmer's office, the small waiting room was crowded. Ethan stood by a closed door, his face pale with worry. "He's regaining consciousness," the doctor told him. "He's been mumbling, but nothing coherent." "We need to speak with him," Margaret insisted. The doctor relented. 5 minutes, no more." Howard Hayes looked small and frail in the narrow bed. A bandage was wrapped around his head. His eyes fluttered open. "Ethan, Margaret, we're here, Father," Margaret said gently. "The letters," he mumbled. He was looking for the letters. "Who, Father?" Ethan pressed. Howard's gaze found me. "You," he said. "The teacher." His eyes sharpened. Tall man, mustache, asked about Ruth's letters. "Was it Daniel Fletcher?" I asked. He nodded. "Ruth's letters," Margaret repeated. "The ones you burned." "Didn't burn them all," Howard confessed. "Kept one. Needed to understand why she would leave, why she would choose him." "Who, Father?" Ethan asked. "Who was Mother writing to?" Howard's gaze fixed on me. "James Blackwood," he whispered, "your fiancé's father." The room tilted. It was impossible, yet it explained everything. "James Blackwood is dead," I said. "Died 3 years ago." "But his son, William..." Howard struggled to focus. "He came here, after Ruth died, looking for something. William had been in River Point. He'd lied about everything. I think he was looking for the same thing this Fletcher wants," Howard rasped. "Mother's letter to James Blackwood," Ethan guessed. "Where is it, Father?" "Study. Behind Ruth's portrait. Hidden compartment. But it's gone." He took it. Howard's hand shot out, gripping Ethan's wrist. "Listen to me, son. I didn't kill her. Your mother. I swear it." "I believe you," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "The Blackwoods," Howard whispered, his strength fading. "They were looking for something Ruth had. Something she found when she was working for them back east, before we were married. A governess for their son, William." Dr. Palmer appeared in the doorway. "That's enough. He needs to rest." In the outer room, we huddled together. "This changes everything," Margaret said. Just then, Daniel Fletcher himself strode through the door, a mask of professional concern on his face. "I heard about the attack," he announced. "As a law enforcement professional, I'd like to offer my assistance." The audacity was breathtaking. "Miss Morgan," he said, his eyes finding mine, "I was planning to call on you." "Miss Morgan isn't going anywhere with you," Ethan said, stepping between us. "Is that what you told my father before you struck him from behind?" Margaret asked coldly. Fletcher's facade cracked. "You know nothing," he snarled, his hand moving to his coat. "Now, Miss Morgan is coming with me, and she's bringing the letter." "Or what?" A new voice came from the doorway. Sheriff Collins stood there, a shotgun in his hands. "You'll do what exactly?" Fletcher froze. "Sheriff, this is a misunderstanding." "Take your hand out of your pocket," Collins ordered. "Slow." A deputy disarmed him. "This man attacked my father last night," Ethan said. "Absolutely not," Fletcher protested. "I was at the hotel all night." "We'll check on that," Collins said. "In the meantime, you'll be staying in my jail." As the deputies led him away, Fletcher's composure broke. He looked at me, his eyes wide with something more than anger. It was fear. "You don't understand," he hissed. "They won't stop coming. The letter is only the beginning." Then he was gone. "He said they," I said quietly to Ethan. "He's working with someone else." "We need to find that letter Fletcher took," Ethan decided. "The one from our mother." "He has it now," I pointed out. "He would have hidden it somewhere safe," Ethan reasoned. "His room at the hotel." "We'll need a distraction for the clerk," I said. "Leave that to me," Mrs. Turner interjected, a determined glint in her eye. "I've known Simon well since he was in short pants." While Mrs. Turner spun a tale for the hotel clerk, we slipped upstairs. Ethan picked the lock to Fletcher's room with a speed that was both impressive and unsettling. The room was Spartanly neat. We searched everywhere. Nothing. "It has to be here," I muttered, my eyes scanning the room. The fireplace. If I wanted to hide something I could retrieve or destroy quickly. I dropped to my knees, reaching up into the chimney. My fingers brushed against something, a small ledge, and on it, a packet of papers tied with string. My hands were black with soot as I untied it. It wasn't one letter, it was three. The first, from James Blackwood to Ruth Hayes, confirmed she was planning to escape Kansas with his help. The second, much older, was from a Jonathan Blackwood. It mentioned a document Ruth had discovered while working as a governess, a document that could bring ruin to us all. The third letter was from William, to Ruth, dated just weeks before his murder. "My dear Mrs. Hayes, I have finally located you. Our mutual friend Jay assures me that you still possess the document. I have recently become engaged to a Miss Eleanor Morgan. Return what was taken, and you will be handsomely compensated. Refuse, and I cannot guarantee your continued safety." My hands trembled. William knew. He had targeted me. Not just for my money, but for something else. Something connected to this document. A commotion from downstairs. Heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs. "Sheriff's deputies," Ethan whispered, peering into the hall. "We need to get out of here." "Too late," he said. "They're already here. Back window. Now." We scrambled out the window, dropping one by one into a snowdrift in the alley below. We ran, finally taking refuge in the cold, dark schoolhouse. "Why were the deputies coming?" I asked, lighting a lamp. Just then, the door rattled. It was Mrs. Turner, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "You'll never believe what's happened. Fletcher, he's dead. Hanged himself in his cell." The news was a cold shock. "It wasn't suicide," Ethan said quietly. "He was afraid of whoever he was working for, and now they've silenced him." We showed her the letters. "We think the document is still hidden at Hayes Ranch," Ethan explained, "in Mother's rooms." "Then that's where you need to go," Mrs. Turner said decisively. "Immediately. And I'm coming with you. Ruth Hayes was my dearest friend. I want to see her killer brought to justice." The ranch house was dark and silent as we approached. "Something's not right," Ethan murmured, his hand on the revolver in his pocket. The kitchen door was unlocked. We moved through the cold, empty house. Ruth's rooms had been preserved, untouched for 5 years. We searched everywhere. "She'd hide it in plain sight," Mrs. Turner said. "Something personal that no one else would touch." My eyes fell on a silver picture frame on her writing desk. A portrait of Ruth and her children. It was heavier than it looked. I turned it over. The velvet backing was secured with small clasps. One was slightly bent. I opened it. Behind the photograph, folded into a tight square, was a document, yellowed with age. I carefully unfolded it. It was a legal contract, dated 15 years earlier. A partnership agreement for a railroad company, signed by James Blackwood, Jonathan Blackwood, and our fathers, Richard Morgan and Theodore Hayes. A hidden addendum detailed a fraud scheme, a plan for the Blackwoods to divert company funds, bankrupting their partners. This is why my father lost everything, I breathed. And my grandfather, Ethan said. Ruth must have found it while she was working for them, Mrs. Turner realized, and she took it as insurance. That's why William targeted you, Margaret said to me, to complete what his family started. And when you found his letter to Jay, he had to be silenced. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. We all froze. Ethan raised his revolver. A figure appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the faint light. An elderly man, impeccably dressed. I believe that document belongs to my family, he said, his voice cultured and cold. Jonathan Blackwood, William's uncle. You're Jay, I whispered. Very good, Miss Morgan, he smiled thinly. You sent Fletcher, Ethan said, and when he failed, you silenced him. Fletcher was becoming a liability, Jonathan said with a dismissive wave. Too emotional. He developed a conscience. He confessed everything. Arranging Ruth's accident. Ordering his own nephew's murder when William fell in love with me and planned to confess. Framing me for the crime. I'm a businessman, he said, as if that explained it all. Now the document, please. You'll have to kill us all, Ethan said quietly. That can be arranged, Jonathan replied. Two men with drawn guns emerged from the shadows behind him. We were outnumbered, outgunned. I slowly folded the document, holding it out. Take it, I said, and leave. As his fingers closed around it, a new voice spoke from the doorway. That's quite far enough, Blackwood. Howard Hayes stood there, pale and unsteady, but flanked by Sheriff Collins and two deputies, their guns drawn. Father, Ethan gasped. Jonathan's composure finally cracked. You have no proof. We have Fletcher's confession, the sheriff said calmly. Jonathan paled. He's dead. Funny thing about that, the sheriff drawled. The man in my jail did hang himself, but it wasn't Daniel Fletcher. It was his assistant. The real Fletcher is very much alive and very eager to testify against you. Seems ordering the death of your own nephew was the one line he wouldn't cross. It was over. As the sheriff led a stunned Jonathan Blackwood and his men away, a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lifted from my shoulders. The suspicion, the betrayal, the fear, it was all gone. Howard Hayes turned to me, his stern face softened. Miss Morgan, he said, it seems I owe you an apology. I misjudged you. He looked at his son, then at Margaret, a fragile peace settling over them. Later, Ethan and I stood by the window, watching the snow fall. What will you do now? He asked softly. You could return to Philadelphia. I looked out at the vast, snow-covered prairie. Philadelphia seemed a lifetime ago. I think, I said slowly, that I might prefer to stay in River Point. The children need their teacher after all. Ethan's smile was like the sunrise. They do indeed. And the teacher? Does she need anything? Anyone? I turned to face him, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not the student, not the mysterious benefactor, but Ethan, a good, brave man. Perhaps, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper, perhaps she needs someone who believes in her, even when the rest of the world doesn't. His hand found mine, his fingers warm and strong. I do believe in you, Eleanor Morgan, he said. I always have. And in that moment, with the truth finally revealed, I knew I had found my way home. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales of dark secrets and hard-won justice.